What's going on, folks? Larry here with Packmaster Dog Training. I wanted to do a little something different today. Just started a new dog, had its second lesson. It's a 1-year-old golden doodle with nothing major, just some very pushy and rude behaviors with the woman of the house, its female owner. And so I wanted to discuss a couple of things. I was going to try something new. We always get a lot of questions, myself and I'm sure plenty of other dog trainers, about how we handle certain situations. And the other day, this weekend, I had the second lesson with this dog. And what I found during the first lesson is it's extremely fearful of many things outside. And I guess it's had some fear issues since the day they got it at 7.5 weeks old. And then to top it all off, it's had a couple of very bad experiences with an underground fence. So when I went to do the first lesson, kind of had to change things up a little bit. And then at the end of the second lesson, after it went really well, I said to the owner, I said, man, I wish we would have filmed day one so we could show people what could be done with a dog that's so scared of everything. So I have nothing going on right now. I didn't want to write about it, and I thought maybe we'd try something different here and get through it. So what I'm going to do is talk about exactly what I did on the first and second lesson. And maybe some of you guys have dogs with similar issues that some of you young trainers aren't sure how to handle. So I'm just going to break it down step by step, and worked out very well. Doesn't mean it's the only way things could have been done. There may even be better ways. I'm just telling you what I did in the first two lessons with this dog to get where we're at now, and hopefully it helps someone out there, okay? So I'll break it down to you like this. Break it down to you. I'm going to break it down. Okay, so I went over to the house for the first lesson. Year-old golden doodle, male, likes to jump, all the normal young dog things, but it is very rude and pushy with the female over. So we talked a lot. It's the first lesson. I spent a lot of time talking. I say a lot of words, too many words, but I really tried to explain to the people the obedience part, the come, the down, the heel, all that stuff, the e-collar work, the e-collar conditioning, all that stuff is super easy, and the dog's going to do well. He's going to learn very fast. But as you know, as I said before, for me, that's a very small part of having the behavior that you want. And so I look at things that are going on around the home, and I try to point out what the owners are doing or not doing in their everyday living with this dog that's creating these unwanted behaviors. And also the things that they're doing right that are creating the good behaviors. That's where the meat and potatoes lies. That's your important part. How are you living with your dog to create the behavior that you want or don't want? That's the most important part of dog training as far as I'm concerned. The other stuff is easy, all the obedience. That's just my opinion, okay? So let's get started. Lesson one. I did a lot of talking. I explained all this. I like to give a lot of details on what we could expect, and most importantly, what I expect from the owners. No matter what I do with this dog, it only works if they follow through and put in a little work for me. I can't do it by myself. Any trainer tells you that, here, I'll train your dog, you never have to do anything, they're lying. They're absolutely lying to you. It's impossible. You have to learn some good dog handling skills and follow through what a trainer tells you to do, what a trainer does for you with your dog, okay? So after I did a lot of talking, put the dog on a leash, I had the owner take the dog out back into the yard. I want to see how she handled them. I wanted to see if the dog was taking off through the doorways and dragging her outside. And it all went pretty well, not bad at all. So after I watched her work with the dog a little bit outside, he wasn't bad. I took the leash, did a little leash work, started implementing some marker training, showed the owners what we're going to do, explained a little bit about marker training, and what I found was the dog was super intelligent and catching on very, very quickly, like very quickly. I was really impressed, and I said, wow, this is going to be fun, because most of the dogs I get called for are have a lot of issues, so I was looking forward to this. So that went real well. We were outside, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. I couldn't tell you. Then I said, okay, let's go out front, and I was going to start conditioning the dog to the e-collar. Now, in a perfect world, I do all the training and building the relationship with a leash and just being with the dog and doing things. I don't introduce an e-collar and start conditioning the dog right away. But with these particular clients, I have 4 lessons, 4 private sessions to get as much work done as I can and to teach the owners as much as possible. So we go outside, we go through that front door, and then I saw a whole different dog. I saw a dog that was scared to death and pulling back and didn't want to move forward and really putting up a fight. So things changed very quickly. Then that's when I found out that the dog does have a lot of fear issues. It's been like that since the day they got the dog. But then what's made it worse, it's had a couple of really bad experiences with underground fence. So basically the dog got through the fence, got hit on the way to the fence, and then was out, and then was getting hit at high levels on the way back in. And I don't know how many times that happened, but anyway, it had a really bad experience with an underground fence. So as a lot of you trainers know, when you try to condition a dog to the e-collar with the underground fence, the first thing they normally do when they feel the e-collar, even at super low levels, is they freeze. They don't want to move because they're expecting something bad to happen. And excuse this video in case you see arms flying up and stuff. Renzo's sitting behind me in the back seat. I'm parked in my driveway, so that's why you might see an arm here or there or a head pop out. Okay, so I messed around with this dog. I tried a few things. I was going to attempt to condition the dog to the e-collar, but it was such a disaster that what I wound up doing was bringing the dog back into the backyard where it felt better. I put the e-collar on the dog, and I wanted to see how the conditioning went. But what I found out was I conditioned the dog 2 ways, how some of you know. I'm not going to go through that. But if I was to start conditioning the dog using the stimulus button before command, the dog panicked no matter how low it was and was having a hard time. So I had to scratch that. I messed around with the dog. I did a few other things, just a lot of leash handling skills and building the dog up and, you know, doing a lot of praise. The dog wouldn't take food. He was just too scared to take food. So before I left, I just wanted to do about 5 minutes of e-collar work to see how he was going to respond. So what I found was that if I gave the dog the command and a tap on the e-collar after the command, and used the leash and everything, he responded much better. He still wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't as bad as doing it the other way. So I did that for 5 minutes just to end, so the dog didn't end on a really bad note. All right, so I told the owner we're not going to do anything more. I was there for quite some time, but I got so little done because of the issues. What I told them was we're not going to count that lesson towards their 4. I didn't want to do that. You know, we need to start fresh. I need 4 good lessons with this dog, so I didn't count that. I didn't really have the owners do anything for that week, and I came back the following week. All right, so the very next weekend, I come back, we go in the house, we talk, and now it's time to get to work. All right, I'm going to get this dog conditioned to the e-collar today. We go out the front door, scared to death, putting on the brakes, dragging me back, doesn't want to move. But what I did was I took the dog through the front yard, onto the street, and away from the house. We went for a walk. We went for a walk a couple of blocks away where the dog felt more secure, like he wasn't going to have to be nailed by the underground fence. I didn't want him to associate anything we were doing or any e-collar work with the underground fence. So I took him a couple of blocks away and I started low-level e-collar work, the e-collar conditioning. To which he was scared of everything around him. You know, he was very uncomfortable. But I started the work from very close to the dog. In other words, the dog was a foot or 2 in front of me, and I started conditioning him that way with movement and you know, rewarding with praise. Again, he didn't want to take food. So to make a long story short, I conditioned the dog like I normally do for about 15-20 minutes away from the home, and he was doing good. He was doing really well and catching on and stopping. You know, he wasn't putting up a fight anymore. He was becoming more and more comfortable. So while he was feeling comfortable, I told the owner, I said, okay, let's go walk back to the house. So we went walking back to the house. He walks really nice on a leash. And I said to the owner, I says, you always walk so nice on a leash? She said, no, actually he doesn't. But he was doing it for me without ever being corrected or shown otherwise, okay? So now we get back to the house. I have a place board sitting on the top of my car, and the car is parked right by the front yard where he's scared to go back into, all right? So this is where we wound up having very good success with this dog, and I hope this helps someone. So what I did was I put the place board right on the edge of the property where he's scared to go back into because he thinks he's going to be nailed. All right, I put the place board right there, and I'm going to start working on a place command with this dog. So what I expected was that this dog was going to be scared of the place board, and I'd have to overcome that and teach him that. Hey, Renzo. But what I found was when I put the place board down, it was more of a curiosity thing. And he walked right up to it and sniffed and got up on it by himself. And so I praised him. I praised him big time. No food. Again, he's still not taking food from my hand. You know, then I pulled him off of the place board. I released him with his release command. We walked away from the place board. I brought him back, and he got up there again, and I praised him. Okay, we did this several times from different angles, and he's doing really, really good at this point. Now what I did, once the dog's mind was completely focused on the place board and not showing any fear, I picked up that place board and I moved it about 3 or 4 feet further into the front yard where he's scared to go. I put it down, and now I started putting a name to the command. Now I started giving him the place command and helping him along on it, and he was getting up there right away. So once he was further into the yard without showing fear, now what I did was I pulled him away from it after giving him his release command. I used a lot of energy to pep him up. I asked him to place. I showed him what I want to do. He got up there. Now I put a handful of food on the place board. Not from my hand, right onto the place board. And right away he went down. He started sniffing and started eating. And I was like, okay, now he's changing. You see where I'm going with this? The mind is changing. He's looking at this in a whole different way. So now he's looking at me and he's looking for more. So I picked up the place board, I moved it 4 or 5 feet further into the yard, and he walked right over to it with no fear. This is where he was deathly scared to go before, okay? So what we wound up doing is working on the place command from all different angles, and by the time we were done, the place board was up in the middle of the front yard where he was scared to death to go, and he was showing no fear, and he was looking for food, and he was taking food off the place board. He was taking food from my hand. It's like he had never had an ounce of fear before. That's when I gave the leash to the owner, and I had her work on it. I'm teaching her how to follow through with this for the whole week that I'm going to be gone. And he just did fantastic. I mean, really, really fantastic. I was super happy because after the first lesson, I was pretty bummed. You know, I went home and my wife asked me how to go, and I said, man, it was terrible. I mean, it was absolutely awful. The worst first lesson I've done in a really long time. So, you know, that's why I didn't count it. I had to figure out how to get this dog ticking. So we ended on a really high note. The dog did fantastic. We went back in the house. We talked a little more, and then we worked on a few behavioral issues in the home that he exhibits with the female owner on a daily basis that drives the family crazy. So we did pretty well in there too. But my whole point for this video, guys, I know it's long and boring, and for my seasoned dog trainers, man, I'm sorry, but you know, you're not going to watch this, or you don't have to watch this. But there's so many young people out there who need answers, and they don't know how to handle certain situations. So what I did with this dog, it was nothing spectacular. It was nothing fancy and sexy, and, you know, I wish we did have it on video, but I do this by myself, so when I go to someone's home, you know, it's very difficult. And plus, what I found was when I try to videotape a dog, it's very difficult because you tend to focus more on making the video than working with the dog. And it really changes how the dog behaves because you're just not focused on the dog. You're focused too much, you know, on making a decent video and not looking like an idiot. So I don't like to do that. But what I did with this, guys, it's not the only way that could have been solved. There's other ways that you could have worked with that dog. As a matter of fact, there's many ways. There's many ways to do everything in dog training. My point is, for the young trainers or everyday dog owners out there, there's a way. There's a way to fix everything. You just have to sometimes think outside the box, you know. It's not all the same. That's why I don't use words like protocols and stuff, because I don't have a specific way that I work with the dog. I don't know till I see the dog. Unless the dog just has no issues and you just want high-level obedience, then it's pretty much the same way almost all the, you know, for the most part, a little bit, you know, pretty much the same. But when working with a dog with issues, especially fear, You know, fear it's a difficult thing to work with. It's my favorite thing because I find it to be by far the most rewarding type of dog to help. And after that second lesson, which I'm counting as the first, you know, that dog, there's no doubt in my mind, he's just going to be fantastic. And that's a good feeling. But I hope something I said in here might maybe